Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the live chat. We're going to do a quick check to make sure everything is up and running. Looks like it is. Hopefully, yep, there we go. Awesome. Okay, so we have a lot to talk about tonight. Our primary focus is going to be on the heavy rainfall event that's going to be on the way. We're also going to keep an eye on baseball. As you know, the trading deadline is on the way. Yankees haven't really done much. The Phillies and Mets, though, appear getting ready to have an all-out brawl to see who wins the NL East. Both teams have made outstanding, excellent trades, and both teams have had horrible games. The Phillies are down 9-2. The Mets got swept by the Padres. So it looks like both teams have had horrible road trips. So we'll see what happens with the trading deadline. But I think the Phillies made a pretty good trade with an excellent closer. Now, this weather pattern is going to be very challenging and a lot of fun. Well, fun for me, not so much for you. Fun for me because I do enjoy the challenge. Of course, now that I have a home, I don't want to see severe weather, but at the same time, I'll do anything to get rid of this heat. I am done with this heat. So we're going to definitely talk about that. I do want to let you guys know, taking the week off next week. My birthday is this Sunday. Going to go out and do a lot of stuff the upcoming week. So unless there's a major weather event, which I don't expect, I'm going to skip next week, and then we'll be back the following week. Which by then I think we'll start to see more tropical development out there. Talking about tropical development, there is none, zero, zip, zilch. There is literally nothing going on right now. The intertropical convergence zone producing just a few rogue thunderstorms. The Caribbean is as clear as you could possibly get. You have some thunderstorms over Cuba. That's about it. Nothing really in the Gulf. And the reason why I bring this up is that there were quite a few individuals out there, especially in social media land, that are making a whole lot of noise about the potential for a tropical system to approach the East Coast or develop towards the Caribbean. And everyone was pointing out, the potential for a low pressure system to develop to the east of the Lesser Antilles. And we got nothing, zero, zip, zilch. The reason why I bring this up is that it is always a bad idea to start posting maps and to start figuring out where low pressure tracks may end up when you don't even have a warm core low developed yet. And the reason why is based on physics. Okay, here's a physical issue here. Okay, when you develop a warm core low, the process of that warm core low influences the upper level dynamics, i.e., ridges, troughs, so on and so forth, because of the nature of a warm core low expelling out latent heat, right? So what happens to the north of a warm core low? You usually get a stronger ridge and so on and so forth. Models do not handle that evolution, even those beautiful AI models, which aren't always that great. They have a hard time handling that evolution. And that's why there's so much chaos when it comes to forecasting tropical systems in the long range or even in the medium range. So there is literally no reason for anyone anywhere to make a post. My volume's low. Um, I got the mic right up here. Can you hear me now? I don't know. I got the mic. How's that? Is that better? Okay, I'm trying to. Um, well, hopefully the mic is a little better. But where was I? Yeah, there's literally no reason. Okay, there's literally, there's literally, there's literally. That's what happens when you go live. Hey, we're going to be testing this out when we do live streaming during actual storms, right? Winter storms and whatnot. But there's literally no reason to post long range tropical tracks or make posts about tropical influences until you actually get a warm core low developed. Right now we have nothing. And when we take a look at the mile guidance, well, there's not much really going on either. There's potential, and as we head towards the middle of August, we should start to see some indication of development. Why do I say that? Because we're literally going to be moving towards the peak of the hurricane season. And typically we see our first hurricane around August 11th. So I do expect some activity to pick up. And that takes us to our long range pattern. Now let's see here. I said, for all you premium members out here, you know this. I said that August was going to be more of the same. But the primary difference is that the changes of the seasons as we head towards fall and we start to get stronger and stronger polar air masses involved, that the polar troughs are going to be able to dig further south and going to be a bit more broader. You're also going to see an increase of high latitude blocking. And what are we seeing? We're seeing that potential here for a negative NAO-ish type weather pattern with a negative EPO type weather pattern, which basically means a trough here, a ridge here, and a trough here. And our Western Atlantic ridge is still in place. The difference is that we're going to see more and more clashes of polar air masses running into these maritime and tropical air masses, setting up pretty much the same situation that we're going to be dealing with starting tonight and continuing on all the way on through Friday. So if you like active weather and volatile weather, this is going to be your weather pattern to end the summer with a lot of large swings. Unfortunately, there's going to be potential here for hot and humid conditions, giving way to a nice cool dry shot, and in between, a lot of showers, a lot of thunderstorms, and then the wild card that we have to watch in this type of weather pattern. And the long range guidance does kind of show this indication here that we're going to watch when you start getting into 15 and 20-inch type rainfall events, is the potential for some influence either by via remnants or direct impacts from tropical low pressure systems. Because this 500 millibar pattern basically allows anything that develops here to shoot up here. And then it's just a time, the whole pattern depends on the timing between the troughs and those tropical systems. So I've been saying this for months, and as we get closer to the forecast period, I continue to get more and more concerned about the potential for some sort of impact of tropical low pressure systems. I don't have any details beyond that. So, as I always say, don't panic, prepare. So, as always, as I've been saying for quite some time, make sure you have your supplies, your batteries, your bottled water, all that good stuff, your generators, all the good, ready to go. So that way you are prepared and you're not panicking. Because if you're already prepared, then you don't have to worry about rushing out the stores and all that other stuff. Now, the weather pattern is driven by this signal here, the negative and the not even negative NAO. I would call it volatile NAO. Okay, now there is a misnomer that many people believe that in order to get a stormy weather pattern, you need a dominant negative NAO. That's not true. What you need is a volatile NAO. So when you start to see the NAO go into positive and negative and positive and negative and neutral and negative, that is a sign of a stormy weather pattern with building and rebuilding of the NAO block. And what that typically signifies is a weather pattern that features a lot of potential for East Coast cyclogenesis, a lot of stalling or slow moving low pressure system and cold fronts, and a lot of potential for rainfall. Combine that with the EPO also remaining volatile, basically neutral, negative, positive, neutral, negative, positive, tells me again we have a very active weather pattern evolving here. Okay, we're not locking into anything just yet, bless you, which we typically don't during this time of year. And so what that looks like in the 500 millibar pattern, and I'm breaking this all down so you guys understand the type of pattern that we're in. We're in a very, very volatile weather pattern for the summer. Okay, let me put that in preference. This isn't winter volatility. Winter volatility is a whole other level. This is summer volatility, which basically means the overall pattern remains the same, but the details keep on shifting. So again, we got to be on our toes, and as we head out through the 10-day period on both the operational and on the ensembles continue to feature the same theme: Western Atlantic Ridge, trough around the Tennessee River Valley up through the Great Lakes, nice trough here around the Aleutians, ridge pattern here over the west. In your negative NAO block, kind of displaced to the north as it would be for this time of year, setting up convergence and confluence here with a nice high pressure system here, and the potential for clashes from tropical air masses, maritime air masses, and polar air masses. Three air masses means a lot of volatility and a lot of activity. So that's where we're at in terms of the weather pattern overall. So now that we have a good understanding of that, and we're not seeing any major changes in forcing parameters in any way, shape, or form for our weather pattern. We're not seeing any type of shift in terms of our driving mechanisms. So pretty much what you see is what you get all the way into early September. So if you like this pattern, then you'll enjoy it. But if you don't, well, unfortunately, I certainly don't like this humidity. We're going to continue to have to deal with it all the way into early September, probably mid-September. Currently, right now, well, we had a few showers and thunderstorms. They're starting to weaken now. We have a tropical air mass in place. Look at the dew points here in the 70s. Just nasty stuff out here. When we take a look at the current radar and surface map from WeatherTap, again, let me refresh this real fast. And again, you can see very, very weak trough lingering around here. An old frontal boundary was around here. It's pretty much dissipated. You saw it earlier this morning. We have a few showers and thunderstorms basically around our convergence zone here, which I'll show in just a moment with the winds. And then here's our primary cold front that we're going to be dealing with over the next couple of days. So we already have a tropical air mass in place, and it's already produced thunderstorms capable of torrential downpours. We know our precipitable water value gradient's already setting up. This caught my eye this afternoon because we're already seeing the gradient establish itself. So the models have been focusing on very heavy rainfall in this area right here. Why is that the case? Well, what's happening here is that all the models are picking up on the observations of a clash between the moisture transport from the Western Atlantic Ridge and the polar transport coming in with our polar trough. And we are caught in the middle. And when you're caught in the middle, well, unfortunately, you end up with some sticky situations. Now you can already start to see that low level frontogenesis showing up here. When we go to the mid levels at 925 millibars, it's even becoming even more pronounced. Here's your stronger frontogenesis back here. Here's your lingering frontogenesis hanging out that's supporting some of those isolated thunderstorms. At 850 millibars, it's a little bit more diffuse. It's more focused here over the St. Lawrence River Valley. What does this tell me? This tells me we have a lot of potential here for lifting when everything comes together. So we have the deep moisture. We have signs of lifting. Now all we need now is a trigger. First, look at 250 millibar winds. Notice the way the winds are aligned, west to east, with these little tiny dips here, right? Right here, got one right here, more robust trough here. This setup initially causes the cold front that approaches to move like molasses. It's nearly stationary when it starts to move through tomorrow. The reason why is because the winds are aligned, okay, are basically parallel to the surface cold front. This jet streak here enhances these little short waves to the south and along that frontal boundary. So there starts the beginning of your triggers. Going to 500 millibars, winds still aligned, same scenario here. We see a little bit more indication of these little short waves in this circulation, in this setup. And then we get down to the surface. And this is where I was telling you how it's very interesting because you could see the northwesterly flow with the dry air pushing in. You have all sorts of boundaries here. This is at 1,000 millibars. Look at all the boundaries that are setting up here. These outflow boundaries, these convergence and confluence boundaries, driven by the topography and the different outflow boundaries from thunderstorms all clashing. And then you can see the southwesterly flow and southerly flow from our Bermuda High transporting all our deep moisture. So we are set up now with a large number of different gradients and forcing parameters at the lower levels, mid levels, and upper levels. So that's how we're set up right now. And that shows up even more nicely but zoomed out. You can just see this whole setup evolving just perfectly. So on the water vapor satellite picture, there's our moisture transport. Notice we're starting to get a little bit more enhancement of lifting. On the infrared satellite picture, there's even more enhancement of lifting. Not there yet. We have the ring of fire starting to set up. We have our cold front getting ready to press south. So when we study our upper level winds for tomorrow, you could see the divergence and diffluence setting up very nicely Thursday into Friday. And that spawns our 850 millibar low, which enhances our 500 millibar shortwave. So we got the trigger in place, we got the lifting in place. At 850 millibars, we have our 850 millibar low forming right over us. So we have all the lifting we need. Now it's the question of what type of moisture do we have? Well, now we're talking about precipitable water values through the roof on Thursday evening into Friday morning. When you start to have precipitable water values in this range here, 2 to 2.5, that's when you can get really torrential downpours. And this is where things are getting a little funky with some of these mesoscale models, like the NAM model guidance. I mentioned this earlier, and one person was really annoyed with what I said. It was really weird on social media, but social media is always weird. But my point with the NAM that I made earlier, which it's very interesting, but I wouldn't, as I said, the NAM is showing a bit of a mood, right? But I wouldn't use it in the forecast. What the NAM is showing is if you get, with all this deep moisture, some convective elevated thunderstorms embedded in this precipitation shield, someone is going to get some very heavy rainfall over 3 inches. The problem is pinpointing it. It's nearly impossible. This is essentially like trying to forecast a mesoscale band in a snowstorm 2 days out. You can't do it. But what we do know is that someone is going to get smacked with heavy, heavy rainfall, and flooding is going to be a major issue when you have this type of precipitable water value set up over the region. And to add in a little bit of good news, hey, by the weekend, dry air returns. We have polar air, and we have our dew points in the 50s and temperatures, high temperatures in the 70s. It's going to feel beautiful out, but we have to get through this rainstorm first. So, in terms of thunderstorm potential, I don't see this as too much severe. You know what I see this as? Because of the tropical moisture you have in place, I could totally see where we get a downburst wind gust, but it enhances a mesoscale low, and the radar thinks that that's a tornado, and you get a rogue tornado warning. I could totally see that scenario playing out. But I think the primary story here is going to be the torrential downpours and the downburst wind gusts associated with that, pushing wind gusts over 55 miles per hour. And that's where you're going to get your severe thunderstorm. But I think the primary story with these thunderstorms, starting tomorrow and continuing on through Friday morning, is going to be the torrential downpours and the areas of flooding. I don't know who is going to get over 3 inches, but I do think it is going to happen. So be prepared. And if you're in on the I-95 corridor, where you get that gradient set up, where the thermal gradient, which is small, maybe a half degree or a degree, is going to be enough to enhance some of these thunderstorms, enhance rising motion in the atmosphere to really drive the heavy rainfall event. I would not be surprised some by New York City, Newark, northeastern New Jersey in general, um, along the I-95 corridor in central New Jersey, off towards Trenton, Philadelphia Metro, someone's going to get smacked with over 3 inches of rain. I just can't tell you who exactly, but those areas are definitely in play in this scenario. So let me just jump to 850 millibars because what I want to show is that, again, our 850 millibar temperatures tomorrow afternoon already begin to cool because we have our cold front pressing south. So in this scenario, unlike any of the other severe thunderstorm events, we have true cold air and dry air transport associated here. So this is what's going to really, again, enhance our thermogenesis. So you have multiple lifting parameters coming into play here at the same time, driving this whole event. So this is true strong cold air transport for really the first time in months, which is really going to set up a beautiful weekend, but also set up our heavy rainfall event. So let me just show the mesoscale models. Okay, so here's my rule with the mesoscale models, because I was asked about this a lot. And again, I'll go over all the questions here in the live chat and, of course, in social media land. You use the HRR, in my opinion, 18 hours and under. I don't like going over 18 hours because you start to lose the resolution. So through the next 18 hours, which takes us into tomorrow morning, there's going to be some pop-up thunderstorms, but the key word here is isolated. Nothing widespread yet. But now we can use the NAM and go beyond 18 hours. And what we have with the NAM is we see a rapid explosion of showers and thunderstorms on Thursday afternoon. And again, some of these thunderstorms are going to pack a hell of a punch with the heavy downpours. And then as the low pressure system organizes, there's our heavy rainfall to continue to take shape Thursday night into Friday morning. And hey, the good news is if you have plans on Friday afternoon and Friday evening, we clear out and improve. So if you're heading to a Mets game, Phillies game, whatever you might be going to, the weather will improve drastically by the time we get to Friday afternoon and evening. And I don't want to use the RRFS yet. I want to see how it performs here because it looks a little off. But this is supposedly replacing the NAM and the HRR next year. So I've been studying it just to see what the errors are, how well it's performing. Right now, a little underwhelmed so far, but we'll see how it improves. The European guidance is basically showing the same thing, same setup. Now, in case you're wondering, hey, Steve, how do you make a precipitation map out of this? Well, what I like to use when I'm dealing with both convective and also stratiform type precipitation, I like to use a model average because what it does is that it kind of removes all the high and low ends and you get a general theme out of it. And basically, the general theme is 1 to 3 inches of rain throughout the region. And I've been sticking with that forecast for about 4 days now. So, premium members, you know exactly what I'm showing here in terms of our impact map. Looking at 1.5 to 3 inches in the orange area, half an inch to an inch and a half in the yellow area. Flash flooding is going to be a major problem in this scenario. So that is the breakdown. Now it's time for me to answer all of your questions, and we'll see where we're at. So let me first jump to the premium section, and let's see what we got here. We got a lot of good questions here. So first, Jim Horace asked, let's see here, was expecting humidity and otherworldly dew points this summer based on your summer forecast, but not round after round after round of punishing temperatures of 10 latest lasting more than 3 days. Okay, I have 100 lasting 3 days. So while having digested your views on August into September, to see these absurd temperatures reoccurring, hold hands with dew points Dreaming of February. Okay, so basically, because we're seeing 850 millibar temperatures jumping to 20 degrees Celsius, and because of the feedback loop that we've had with this humidity, that in the urban areas we've been able to jump into those higher temperatures in the upper 90s. Now that we're introducing stronger polar air masses, we're going to be able to clear out some of that high humidity that's built up in the urban heat island. And I think that we're going to start to see a decline in the potential for these upper 90s. I still expect through August that we'll still have periods where we're going to be in the lower to mid 90s and a heat index near 100 from time to time. But I think the frequency will continue to back off as the polar jet stream becomes more expansive and digs further south. Autobahn asks, the HRR and the NAM show two different scenarios with this event. NAM is more in line with your forecast, and the HRR looks more like a frontal passage. HRR not reading this well. The HRR beyond 18 hours is having struggles with dealing with the synoptic aspect of this weather pattern. Remember, the HRR is is a convective model, which is a mesoscale models, and typically, even the NAM has this issue where it struggles with some synoptic properties. So, the key thing to do, and this is why math is very important in meteorology. Someone was asking me beforehand, why do we need to learn all this math? Why is it required in order to get a CDM, for example? And the reason why is because by understanding this math and understanding the equations that go into it, you're able to understand what models to use and why. So, in this scenario, the HRR is struggling with the synoptic properties here. And so it doesn't fully develop a mid level and low level circulation. The 850 millibar low and 700 millibar low are warped in the model guides. And so it produces more of a frontal boundary look rather than a new secondary low look. Whereas the NAM model guidance is a little bit better because the resolution's a little bit better beyond 18 hours. So it's able to pick up that low pressure system and produce a more realistic output. I do expect the HRR to improve once we get into that 18-hour period. Good evening, card. I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow at 5 p.m. Do I need to worry about flash flooding? Yes. You're going to be driving in the start of our heavy rainfall, so I would be prepared for poor driving conditions, heavy rainfall, major ponding on the roadways, and some localized flash flooding. Negative QBO evident at 70 millibars looking at Earth New School. Yep, the negative QBO is taking hold, and we're going to be talking more about this in the coming weeks as we get ready for the winter forecast. For those of you who don't know, the quasi-biennial oscillation is very important in understanding our weather pattern. When it's positive, that means the winds in the stratosphere at the equator are moving along with the Earth's rotation, and you get a faster polar jet stream. When they're negative, that means they're moving opposite. So you get a more bunched up polar jet stream and a higher potential for high latitude blocking. What's interesting is we're going to have a negative QBO with a positive uh, AAM, atmospheric angular momentum. And when you have those two together, they kind of, well, don't always play nice. And so you end up with an enhanced polar jet stream with a lot of blocking. It can lead to a lot of chaos. So something that's a little bit of foreshadowing. Uh, Donald Dodd asks, "Hi Steve. Besides flash flooding potential, do you expect severe weather tomorrow afternoon? Taking my mom to a doctor's appointment. Everyone's going to the doctors. I hope everyone's all right." Okay, so I'm more concerned about downburst wind gusts here. I think that there might be a tornado warning out of the fact that we see those downburst wind gusts and the radar erroneously picks up a low level circulation. I'm very, very concerned about the torrential downpours and the potential for flooding. I think that's the primary threat impact. And that I consider to be severe, just as much of an important severe weather event. And again, let me just say, if you If you see water and you think you could drive through it, be careful. That water may be deeper than you think, and then before you know it, your car engine's stalled out, and you are getting caught up with water flooding your car. So you don't want to be in that situation. Looks like 700 millibar temps in particular are going to be pretty cold for this time of year as a front comes through. Will that enhance lifting and potential for downburst winds? Yeah, that's going to be part of it. Absolutely. That's going to definitely be one of the factors that's going to be influencing my concern for those downburst wind gusts. We're also going to have a very sharp cutoff in the rainfall on Friday afternoon as a result because the dry air transport is just going to be crashing in. So it's going to be a pretty fast cutoff from driving rainfall to scattered cloud cover, I think. Let's see. The negative NAO at the right, i.e., wrong, would help pin tropical systems on the coast or even push them towards the coast. Not suggesting they're sandy, but definitely lead to some heavy rain, solid winds here. Yeah, it is a concern. That is definitely a concern. I will not use the S word, but I will say that it is a concerning signal that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Difference between band of heavy snow and band of heavy rain is that the snow stays where it is pretty much. The rain races downhill and downstream and causes live flooding pretty quickly. That is very true. Let's see what's going on in social media land. You're on. Let's see here. Happy birthday, Steve. Thank you. Tip down to 76 in the city due to the rain. That's true. Anything on X or okay? Well, we're checking. Let's see if there's any. Da, 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 da. Let's see. While we're waiting for that, looks like the Mets. So far, there's no new trades, but as I said, yep. All right. Let's see here, Steve. Are we talking similar as what we experienced several weeks ago on 7/14 when someone could be seeing 6, 7 inches of rain if they lose the lottery on this one? Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that 6 inch mark. See, what the NAM was showing in the 12Z run, it's missing in the 18Z run, is simply a thunderstorm that stalled, that basically slowly moves over the region in trains. And that's where you got that 6 inch rainfall potential. The NAM potential, the potential that's shown in the NAM and in the HRR guidance is not unrealistic in this type of weather pattern. And someone is going to get hit with pretty significant rainfall as a result. First of all, happy birthday. Thank you. My question is as follows. Based on, I guess, the NAM, what are your best guess for timing for clearing on Monmouth County coast? I think everyone clears out by 3 p.m. Everyone in central New Jersey clears out by 3 p.m. I would say 5 p.m. for southern New Jersey and eastern Long Island. So by the time everyone's getting ready for the evening rush hour, should be good to go. I would say that the best chance for flooding is going to be on the I-95 corridor. And here's why. On the I-95 corridor, you have a combination of three things. One, the slowing cold front. Okay. Two, convergence of the best synoptic lifting. Three, the urban heat island effect. So you got those three factors coming together all at one time. That's where you're going to focus a lot of your heaviest rainfall and best potential. Combine that with all the concrete, and let's face it, the poor drainage that's involved in that area. I think that's the best chance for flooding. Uh, in terms of Enzo right now, I am very much convinced that we're going to have a warm neutral. I don't buy that. There is, look, I know that there's some people running around trying to claim that La Nina is developing. You had a Kelvin wave move through, which knocked down the water temperatures. The strong Kelvin wave got you to minus 0.1 degrees Celsius in Nino 3.4. That isn't going to cut it. Okay, so what I think we're going to see is a warm neutral event set up. I don't see any type of sign of any type of La Nina at all. I don't think August will be cooler than normal, but I do think we're going to have some low temperatures that are going to be very interesting. Card asks if we get heavy rain by the time I have to leave for my doctor's appointment, call in to reschedule. No good routes to the doctor's office to avoid spots that get flooded. Yeah, it's going to be nasty. I can tell you that much. What do we got here? Okay, so 5 p.m. is when you expect the widespread breakout storms. From 4 to 6 p.m., everything will just blossom. 5 p.m. is when the mall guidance is really focusing. But I think from 4 to 6 p.m., you're just going to see this blossoming and growing of showers and thunderstorms. And then it just goes downhill from there. And it won't even be north to south. It'll be more like on the frontal boundary and expand out. So it's going to almost look like just like an explosion of lifting. It's going to be very interesting to watch. In fact, I think, let's see here, which model does a great job of illustrating this? Yeah, here we go. Let me pull up the NAM real fast. Okay, take a look at this. Okay, so you have your frontal boundary approaching, and it's kind of isolated and widely scattered, not very well organized. Then, as you get towards 4 p.m., look at that, just growth. Boom. And just wave after wave. And you get this feedback and this redevelopment here on Friday morning because our new surface low develops. So you get your precipitation hanging back here. And then finally, everything clears out as we head towards the afternoon hours and then steadily improves there on out. Fun stuff. Okay. Let's see. What else do we have? Oh, we got another question on social media. Uh, what time do you think the rain in New York City? So I think that Friday, honestly, I would say if you have plans for Friday afternoon and evening, I think you're good. I think the worst conditions are going to be third tomorrow afternoon through Friday morning. So the tomorrow's rush hour, evening rush hour, and Friday morning's rush hour are going to be a complete and total mess. Absolutely. It's going to be nasty. Let's see. I mean, honestly, I'm my general rule is that normally I was planning on going to go work out tomorrow, do a leg day. I'm probably going to skip that because I don't want to be out there driving in heavy rainfall, and you shouldn't want to either. So if you have a chance to escape that, wow, the Phillies lost today too. Well, what do you know? So I'm just taking a look to see if there's any updates for. Uh, so far, there is no other trades coming up for the Yankees, Phillies, or Mets. Nothing's close, apparently. So just so you know, and also the Red Sox. I know I have a couple of Red Sox fans out there. So nothing imminent. When do you normally do your winter forecast? Normally, historically, I've always got out around October 20th, 21st. The only time I missed that date was when I was getting ready to get married. I was just way too stressed and I couldn't get it done in time. Um, yeah, too much going on and too many people annoying me. That was 2019, but normally somewhere around October 20th, 21st. I know that people issue it a lot earlier. Here's the reason why I do not issue my winter forecast in September and August. The reason why is that all the forcing parameters I look for in order to create a winter forecast, which, if I may say myself, I usually do pretty good. but more importantly, when I don't do well, I know why, right? In my winter forecast for premium members, I always issue a what can go wrong. Why do I put that? Because I recognize that long range seasonal forecasting is incredibly volatile and very difficult. Now, some people quit doing them because they're hard, but the reason why I keep doing them is because they're hard. You can't improve if you don't challenge yourself, right? So if you just do the easy stuff, you're never going to get any better. So I like to challenge myself and try to improve my forecasting skills. With that said, there are a lot of factors that go into a seasonal forecast for the winter that you must wait until October to get a clear view on. We're talking about tropical forcing, snow cover in Siberia and also North America, the evolution of the stratosphere, which is going to be a little bit easier this year because the QBO is a lot more robust and clear. So there's all those factors, right? Which you have to consider when you're creating a winter forecast. So that's why I never like issuing one in the early fall or in the early or in the late summer. I just don't think it's wise, and certainly not wise anytime even before that, which I've seen some people do. Which it's just wild to me. I don't know what to say about that. That's always been interesting. So far, looks like we've answered all of the questions. Hold it, we got a new one here. There was one winter where no one could have gotten the where can it go wrong part right. When the level above the stratosphere leaked cold air into the yes. When the okay, this was the winter 2019-20. Okay, I remember this because I happened to be, we were visiting my parents, right, for Christmas. And I'll remember this as clear as anything because I've never experienced this before. Cold air from the ionosphere bled into the top of the stratosphere. And the idea for the winter forecast was for a strong stratospheric warming event to weaken an already weak polar vortex. But when that cold air from the ionosphere bled into the stratosphere, it basically nuked the whole forecast. And what happened with that process, it allowed for the polar vortex to strengthen like as if it was on steroids and completely blew up the entire forecast. Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that that was going to happen. And when it did happen, it just creates such havoc because basically the weather pattern heading into December, everything was looking great. The polar vortex was weakening. We were starting to see the negative NAO. There were signs in the amalgams of maybe some storm potential. Of course, the the normal individuals out there posting snowstorms 15 days out from the GFS. All that stuff was starting to go on. We're all getting ready. We're going to have Christmas. It's going to be fun. We're going to talk about Santa Claus. We're going to have Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and snowmen. And then the stratosphere just said no. Then the stratosphere went cold. The polar vortex strengthened, contracted, and boom, goodbye winter. And then we had a whole winter season of storm tracks to our north, periods of rain, and temperatures in the 50s. And everyone was upset. Snowplow operators were upset because there was no snow. Meteorologists were upset because their forecasts went up like just got nuked. And all of them, they were just on fire. It was a dumpster fire of a winter, and it was something that I will never ever forget. Which is why now I get paranoid. I got like I just get freaked out when I look at the stratosphere because I always say, what is going to happen? Is there going to be some sort of weird anomaly that shows up that just destroys the forecast? That was a tough one. That was a very, very tough one. The winter for it begins 6 months out. If you follow my long range thoughts, you start to see Because what I do with the long range thoughts for premium members, and all you premium members, you definitely can understand where I'm going here. I start to lay out the plan of what I'm thinking all the way back in June. Not the forecast, but the parameters of the evolution of the atmosphere. And what you do is that you build on that like a layer of bricks of observations and the evolution of the weather pattern and how different features are interacting with each other. And while you're building that picture and connecting that puzzle that's made of hundreds of thousands of pieces, you start to get a pretty good idea of the signals and how they're working together. You see, a winter forecast or any seasonal forecast is not based on one or two features, right? It's not just based on tropical forcing from El Nino and the stratosphere. No, it is a combination of not only, hey, whether or not we get an El Nino or La Nina or neutral, but how do those features interact with what's happening in the stratosphere? And how does that interaction change the influences of those features? And how does that drive the development of tropical convection, mountain torque, the evolution of what's going on in the Pacific in terms of location of their troughs and ridges? All that stuff comes together. And then you always have your wild card, a tropical system in the Pacific, cold air coming in from the ionosphere, a volcano releasing a ton of water vapor into the atmosphere, altering the circulation, or just a powerful winter storm that starts in the early winter that kickstarts a continuous redevelopment of the negative NEO, like what we had in 2009-10. So it's not so much a when do you start writing the winter forecast, it's more of you never stop writing the winter forecast or the spring forecast or the summer forecast. Because what you have to do in order to be a good seasonal forecaster is constantly monitor how the atmosphere is unfolding and how the different atmospheric lifting parameters and influences are interacting with each other. That's the best way to look at it. And it can be incredibly complicated, and very, very difficult, but also very challenging. Excuse me. Let's see here. Anything else on Facebook or? Okay. So it looks like I got everything done here on YouTube. And it looks like I answered all the questions and take a look at the observations, see what our thunderstorms look like right now. So for the most part, we just have a few lingering showers producing heavier downpours around Long Island. We have a few isolated thunderstorms south of Allentown, but nothing really significant, which is good. So far for the rest of this evening, it looks like it's going to be pretty quiet. And let's see if we got new HRR guidance. And yeah, so for tonight, it's going to be relatively quiet, I think. Just a few pop up showers here and there. Tomorrow morning, we start to see more widely scattered showers of thunderstorms, especially north of the I-95 corridor. And then, yeah, tomorrow afternoon is when we start to see everything start to blossom. So the latest HRR now is going through that as well. Hmm. Let's see if there's anything new. I'm quickly checking Baseball World real fast to see if there's any more new trades popping up. I gotta admit, man, the Philly fans out there, you guys gotta be happy with what they did today, and Met fans too. I'm ecstatic with what happened. I don't understand this idea of keeping on like, oh, we can't trade our prospects. 99% of them never amount to anything. trade them all. I want a World Series. I don't care about having the best farm system. Looks like we are all questioned out. All right. Sounds good to me. All right. So just to go over everything once again, and then we'll close it up unless we get any other questions. So for tonight, we're pretty much done. Maybe an isolated rogue shower, and that's about it. Tomorrow morning, pop-up shower thunderstorm, primarily over the northern interior, north and west of the I-95 corridor. By tomorrow afternoon, everything starts to blossom and grow. And when I say blossom and grow, we're going to go from just a few scattered showers to a lot of thunderstorms in a very fast period of time. By tomorrow evening's rush hour, widespread showers and thunderstorms capable of tropical downpours. A few of those thunderstorms will reach severe levels, but I think it's going to be more isolated. I think the primary threat factor here is going to be the tropical downpours and the flash flooding potential. Very heavy rainfall tomorrow night into Friday morning. Everything ends by the time we get to Friday afternoon. I like generally 1 to 3 inches of rain around the region, interior, I 95 corridor, and the coast. But on the I 95 corridor, someone's going to be capable of pushing over 3 inches. I don't know where. That is going to have to be driven by that's going to have to be studied by mesoscale factors, which I'll be monitoring throughout the afternoon and evening hours. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Of course, I'll have updates as we go along. But if I was to pick an area where the best potential for flash flooding, I would say southeastern Pennsylvania around the Philadelphia metro, southwestern New Jersey around the Philadelphia metro, central New Jersey. We're talking about Monmouth, Northern Ocean, Mercer counties, um, up towards northeastern New Jersey, New York City, and southwestern Connecticut. That's where I see the potential for flooding. That doesn't mean that other areas won't have a chance of flooding, but I think that's going to be your highest potential there in those locations. Um, if you're driving tomorrow evening and Friday morning's rush hour, use extreme caution. Don't drive through submerged roadways because that water may be deeper than you think. And do prepare for very poor visibility. It's not going to be pretty in terms of driving, that is for sure. And don't be surprised if you hear a lot of thunder, a lot of lightning. Again, I think the primary severe threat here is going to be your downburst wind gusts. But that is pretty much about it. I think we. Oh, we got a question on YouTube. All right, let's check it out. Uh, why did storms form today on the backside of the cold front that came through last night? Don't they usually form on the warm side? Okay, so good question. When you're dealing with cold fronts, you can have anti-front precipitation and you can have precipitation form ahead of a cold front. In this case, it wasn't really a true cold front. It was a cold front that was washing out. When you study, and I talked about this in the video this morning, there wasn't a great deal of difference in the atmosphere ahead and behind the cold front. It was washing out and generally was a trough. Combine that with the shortwave that was moving through at around 700 millibars that supported the development of of a few thunderstorms generally to the north of that frontal boundary. Then the third factor was those thunderstorms formed along the urban heat effect, which focused the low level lifting and combined everything to support the development of those thunderstorms. So these thunderstorms were not driven by the cold front, but driven by the combination of the urban heat effect and one of those mid-level shortwaves I was talking about moving through the region at 700 millibars this afternoon. That's what drove this. Um, the cold front that we're going to be seeing dropping in from the Great Lakes, that one will have more of an influence of thunderstorms ahead of it and more steady rainfall behind it. Okay. So that's going to be a scenario where you're going to have your best potential for thunderstorms over central southern New Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania, and more steady rain and elevated thunderstorms to the north of the frontal boundary in northeastern Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, northeastern New Jersey, New York City Metro, and Long Island. What is stopping tomorrow from being a tornado threat? Really, there isn't a lot of veering winds. When we start to get the winds back into the northwest, we are more in an environment at the lower levels. This is primarily by the time we get to Thursday night and Friday morning, where the atmosphere is generally stable. Um, when the atmosphere is at its most stable, which is going to be tomorrow afternoon, all the winds are basically aligned. Here, let me see if I can pull up a skew T here. This is not really a good environment for tornadoes at all. But let me see if I can pull up a skew T for that time period here. Give me 1 second. Let's see here. Okay, so let me share this. So this is the skew T for that time period. And the winds here coming in from the east at the lower levels and from the west here, but notice how weak they are. 5 to 10 knots is not going to cut it, ladies and gentlemen. And with that easterly wind, you're transporting a generally stable atmospheric environment. So, again, not exactly the best conditions. Now, you have this dry pocket here, which is something that I warned about in terms of lifting all this tropical moisture up into this area of cold, dry air, which will allow for that downburst wind gust event. Because basically, tropical moisture lifts up into the dry air, it condenses, cools, slams back to the surface like a rock. But in this environment, with these type of winds, well, it just doesn't cut it, and the hydrograph really doesn't support a tornado event at all. You really don't see a lot of shear. These winds are way too weak, even at the mid levels. 20 knots at 600 millibars is nothing. Very, very weak. You kind of want to get like a 40 or 50 knot wind, and then you want to get at the lower levels maybe a southeasterly or southerly wind. For us, in all right, so if we were in the plains and you had a southeasterly wind at, let's say, 15 miles per hour, and then at 850 millibars you had a southwesterly wind at 50 miles per hour, game on, right? But we're in the northern Atlantic. That easterly wind is transporting a stable atmosphere from the Atlantic Ocean. You know, like when we have a sea breeze event. Well, that easterly wind's transporting that stable air mass in. Combine that with the winds being so light, doesn't add up. Not a tornado. Now, again, I would not be surprised because of this signal if you get a downburst wind gust and you end up with a circulation showing up on the radar. But I think that's a false positive, and I think you're going to end up with a tornado warning with no real tornado. That is what I think is going to happen. And, and with that, hear lightning. Well, hear thunder and see lightning. All right, so it is 9 o'clock, and I'm about to lose my voice. So we're going to shut down for tonight. As always, outstanding questions. I always appreciate them. I think we answered everything in terms of the flooding potential. As I said, be careful out there. Try not to drive through submerged roadways, please, because you're only putting yourself in danger. And as always, stay safe out there. Have a good night.